Hi. So today I want to talk about mobile speed. I've never talked about mobile speed, and I just started writing my first blog posts about it probably a few weeks ago. You know, last year we knew that Google had said that they were going to start ranking sites based on mobile friendliness. So I had to kind of ramp up myself, do some reading to figure out what mobile friendly was. And for blogs, it was easy. All you had to do was add, at least for WordPress blogs, you had to add a plugin called WP Touch. And then once you turn that on, it basically made your blogs mobile friendly. Had to do a little bit more with my couple of regular websites, my static websites, but I got every single site mobile friendly. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, you know what? I've done good work here. I'm done. And January came, and I'm thinking I'm done. Then I started to notice, probably in the last month, that my traffic was tanking. And it started tanking in May. I mean, every single website, everything I own started tanking. I lost more than half my traffic on all of them. And it was just a fluke that I happened to notice. You know, it used to be something I looked at all the time. I used to do SEO work for different people, and that wasn't a primary, job, but I used to do that. And so I hadn't paid any attention to my rankings. They had just always been there. And then I noticed that things were just not right one day, and I was looking. I have something set on my browser where I can see what my Alexa rank is at any time. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who say Alexa rank means nothing. You know, just because it's not precise does not mean it doesn't mean anything. If your Alexa rank was 30 and all of a sudden it's 3 million, you know what? It's telling you there's something wrong. In my case, all my websites were, well, not all of them. Most of them were ranked, in the top 500,000. Some of them were ranked higher. I had pretty good traffic going along. And then, like I said, I just happened to notice that they had tanked. And I wasn't getting as many comments anymore. And I went and I looked at my analytics. I said, whoa, what the devil happened? And so I went to Alexa. And it turns out that on May 1st, or around May 1st, all of my websites started to tank. And I'm thinking, well, what the devil? I'm mobile friendly. And it turns out that it's not just mobile friendliness, it's mobile speed, which I really hadn't paid any attention to. Because the first link that Google gave you would just test your site to see if they were mobile friendly. I never thought about the other links testing for speed. And it turns out there's two of them from Google, and they don't both always give you something. I'm going to put all these links down below just so you can check your stuff later on. So once I realized it was mobile speed, I said, okay, this is a new animal. What am I going to do? Now, I built almost all my websites. There's one where my friend Kelvin actually initially created the first one, but I've made so many modifications that I can say, it's my website. I just changed, so many things around. And with my other websites, my static websites, I basically had to go in and kill some of my coding. Back in the day, you forced everything into a certain format using your HTML coding and tables and such. Well, you know what? Today's mobile does not like tables. It just doesn't. And that really messed me up. So I had to dig into my CSS. I had to do some reading and research and figure out, okay, how do you do everything that way? Or at least minimize how much HTML tables, I have in everything. Anyhow, I was able to, take care of that. But now we're on to this other thing. So luckily, one of the links, actually two of them, will tell you what you need to do to try to fix things, although one of them, which is actually pretty cool, but you actually have to say, okay, send me the report, and it'll send you the report. I don't know why Google has two different things. They're just kind of goofy. So anyway, I have been going through all kind of gesticulations on, well, actually more my blogs than my websites. Reason being, one of the things that I did was I contacted my host, because some of the research I did said, well, your hosting packages might not be up to snuff. So I contacted my host, and they said, well, you're on a package that you got from 10 years ago, and if you switch to a different package, that should take care of some of that stuff. Well, it did in a way for my regular static websites, but it didn't do anything for my blogs. And I'm on WordPress for all of them, and all except one are kind of older themes that I just totally modified. One is relatively newer than the others. But it's still, I think, probably 2 years, 2 or 3 years old. And, that's what I did. I took, these themes and I modified them myself. So all of them were missing this thing that talks about the viewport. It's a meta tag that you put in called viewport, and it tells you you're supposed to put in content equals width equals width that, whatever it means. You know what? That doesn't work for me. It doesn't work on any of my websites. And I haven't found a single person who can tell me how come the standard thing that Google recommends and everyone else is recommending might not work, but it doesn't work. What works for me is that I actually put in a width, which is based off of pixels, so that it works everywhere. Now, Google still doesn't necessarily like it, but my speed increased because it was better than not having anything in there at all. So that's the first thing. The second thing, they talk about compression. And on some sites, they're talking about gzip compression. And there's a lot of code you have to put in for that. So I worked on that, and I was able to get that in. And there's still a couple websites where it didn't increase as much as I thought it would, but, I did that. Then I went through the plugin stage, where you're just looking for plugin after plugin, because a lot of times you're told that you've got these different CSS or JavaScript things that are happening before the fold. And so you're looking for different things to take care of that. Now I'm going to tell you the one plugin that I actually put in that works is something called Async JS and CSS, and I'm going to put the name of that down there. However, for all of my blogs, the settings that were recommended did not work. Oh, sure, I ended up with 100/100 speed, but I ended up with no content showing anywhere. It didn't show on my computer. It didn't show on the phone. That's not a good look. So I had to modify that. Then I started to find out that some of the plugins take up speed. One in particular was called Read Speaker or Web Reader, which I've had on most of my blogs since 2008, 2009. It turns out that they hadn't updated in years and I hadn't paid attention to it. This is like a warning thing for people with WordPress blogs. Look at your plugins, and if they haven't been updated for a long time, you might need to do something about it. In this case, they hadn't updated it. Reason being, they went to a paid model. They didn't go back to those of us who were using it from the beginning and tell us, okay, you can't use it anymore. They just stopped updating it. So because of that, now you had all these other issues. Probably with the paid version, they've taken care of all that and everything works better. It certainly sounds better because I went to the web page. But I had to remove it because I don't have enough content to want to have everybody listen to it. That's too darn bad. So then I had to deal with that. But the big thing that I kind of had to deal with, and this is dicey. I'm not even going to recommend that everybody try this unless you're comfortable messing with both your CSS and your PHP files in your WordPress blog. There's a thing where there's certain types of code in CSS where it begins with a dot and then whatever afterwards. Well, it seems that per Google, that is code that is blocking. It's rendering something. What it's doing supposedly is you're forcing everything to load before it has to. These dot codes are basically what they consider secondary codes. You don't need to have it load immediately. If your speed is up to snuff, then everything else will load, and then it'll load, and you don't even notice anything. But you need all that out of there, and you're supposed to put it in the header using these style tags. And that's a dicey thing, but you know what? I'm not scared. So what I did is I basically copied the entire CSS file into a notepad file and saved that under whichever blog it happened to be. Then I took another notepad file and every single dot whatever I moved over to this other file and then added the style tag, the open and close tags to every single one of those. Then I went back into the file in the blog itself, went into my header.php, added all of that after the head tag, but before the close head tag. Just added every single one of those things in there, added the viewport, and then after I saved that, went back to the CSS file and eliminated every single dot whatever was in that file, which should have corresponded to the other one, and saved it, and it works. And you think you're done? No, you're not done. Because I had to alter my .htaccess file because, at least for the websites, it says this thing about you didn't set an expiry date. I'm like, what the devil is an expiry date? And I had to look that up. And it turns out that I don't fully understand it. I'm not even going to lie. I don't fully understand it, but there was code that you put in your htaccess file that will fix that. At least for most websites. And I got to tell you that because I have a website. It's not my website. It's a client website that I manage and I write for. And it turns out that her server wouldn't accept it. Matter of fact, it just shut it down, so I had to basically get rid of that. But, you know, that's just one of those kind of things where it turns out that what works for one website or one WordPress thing does not necessarily work for everything, which is depressing. And I'm going to tell you the truth. This took me probably 8 or 9 days just to get to a speed that I can live with. I have basically 2 of my websites where it's giving me a mobile ranking of good. Everything else is fair. But considering that everything was poor, I will take fair. And I've at least been able to get it to a high fair. It all sounds stupid. The basic thing I want to let folks know is that if you're noticing that your website traffic is down, or you think it might be, or you haven't really paid any attention, you want to check it, check these links that I have down below and see what your speed looks like. If your speed is in the 50s or lower, that means it's poor. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot more. For instance, one of the things I had to go in to do is compress some of my own images because they were considered too big, and that helped me with speed a little bit. There's some images I just can't do anything with because I use a plugin called CompFight, which goes out there on Flickr and looks for common creative that you can use for free on your websites. But you can't shrink any of that stuff because it's coming from somewhere else. So I tried that. I also loaded a site called Zara 4 for larger images that my own programs can't shrink enough to use that to try to shrink it some. But that's also paid up to, you get 16 megabytes, and you start to find out that you can run through that pretty quickly. So I'd use it sparingly. I'm telling you, you just don't know. And one of the suggestions that I saw online that really starts to make some sense is, you know, maybe you need to start thinking about Bing more often than Google, which sounds really cool, except for the fact that most everyone else is coming to you from Google, your SEO from Google. If more people were using Bing, I'd be a superstar. I'm just saying. So anyway, let me know if you have thought much about this mobile speed thing. Let me know if you've thought about the mobile friendliness. Have you done anything with it? You know, if you've noticed, like I said, your traffic. I noticed my traffic. I noticed my Google AdSense on one of my websites had been going down. And it finally just hit me. It was time to do something with it. You know, let me know if I've told you anything new. If you can figure out this viewport thing for me and how come the recommended setting that every single YouTube video I saw and every other website I've seen recommends doesn't work for me. Because maybe there's something else. I don't know. Anyhow, that's today's video. I hope you guys are doing a lot better than me with this. And let me know your thoughts. You take care.